In an earlier video series, I talked about how to say no, how to draw a line, set your boundaries. But the situations I described were more related to your workload, how to protect your energy, and how to ensure that your manager knows that there are conflicting priorities. This time, I want to talk about how to say no when the request itself doesn't sit right with you. I'm Dawn, and this is Have That Talk. Now, I don't know how often this might have happened in your career, but it's not uncommon. And that is when your manager asks you to do something that doesn't seem to be on the right side of appropriate. I'm not talking about something that's overtly illegal, more about the request that just kind of plays with the truth a little bit. Something like how to present the data in a way that obscures the real picture, an important detail that your manager doesn't want to be revealed. Or about some advice that your manager is giving you about how to respond to a request from HR or from legal or from compliance. In any case, the situation creates a conflict between what you're being asked to do and what you think is actually right, from the perspective of your own values, but also from the perspective of company policy. How do you deal with that when your manager asks you to push the interpretation of where the boundaries lie? In a situation like that, you're always on the back foot. Your manager is in a position of authority, and in the power dynamic, you are further down the ladder. So how do you draw a line, push back, and indicate that actually this isn't something that you want to do or want to support? What often happens in situations like this is that you package your refusal as not having time or capacity to fulfill the request. This may or may not be true, but it doesn't always get you off the hook. You may need to be more explicit as to why this doesn't really sit well with you. For instance, by asking a question. This seems to contradict what's written in the company policies. How can we resolve that? Or, I remember HR saying that it's important to highlight these other points. How can we make sure we're still aligned? What the question does is that it brings out your underlying misgivings in a way that still allows your manager either to backtrack and withdraw the request, or to see that you're not an easy pushover when it comes to handling these edge cases. So you're not directly saying no. What you're doing is bringing out the ambiguity into the open. The other kind of question you could ask is to specifically request clarification. For instance, are you asking me to bypass this clause in the compliance requirements? And again, this shines a light on the ambiguity of the request, because whoever is asking you to fudge the numbers, bypass that compliance policy, or ignore that approval process probably won't be asking it directly. The request will land on your table as an innocent way of a manager delegating a task. It might not even happen via email. It might be a call, or your manager passing by your desk and saying, "Oh, can you do this for me?" You have to be clear about your own values and your own red lines, so that when you're asked to do something that seems to be a little bit fuzzy, you can respond with conviction and clarity. It also means that you need to have a few phrases in your back pocket for those kinds of requests. So take a quiet half hour to think about how you would respond in a situation that might compromise your values. What are the phrases that you could use to politely decline without disrespecting your manager and also without losing face? And the point isn't that you need to be a goody two-shoes or an activist for the compliance department. What it means is that you're signaling that you're not available for these kinds of jobs. There's friction when you're involved. You don't just pick up the baton and run with it. You stop and query and question back, hold up a mirror. So be clear about your convictions. Be clear about the phrases that you can use to politely decline. But most of all, Be clear about your values when somebody comes to you to have that talk. Okay? I'll see you next time.